What's going on? All my Christians, fellow believers, and unbelievers who gonna turn into believers of the way, believers of the faith. Look, I got something on my mind I want to get off. So I just left the courthouse. You know, we ain't gonna get into the reasons and such about why I'm in court, but what I'm going to talk about is what I noticed with the judge, and there's some parallels to draw from the judge to us, you know what I mean? Because I was in there and the judge was sitting on her, you know, she's sitting on her bench on her little mini throne, you know, casting judgment because she was hired by the state and by the parish to be a judge. So her very nature is, and her very role of employment is to bring judgment, just judgment, right? And we got to believe that a judge who is sworn in, and I'm hoping they still take oath to a Bible. You know, I know things change in the courthouse, and nowadays they're going into so many wicked ways. But in times that I remember, they swore on a Bible that they would take oath and do things justly. So when the judge is ruling from her bench, she's ruling justly. So they had this lady, and she was on a Zoom call, right? And the judge said, ma'am, why aren't you in court? I remember last time you was on a Zoom call and I told you you had the next court date, you had to appear in person. And the lady said, Your Honor, I don't have a car. And the judge said, ma'am, just because you don't have a car doesn't mean you don't belong in court or you shouldn't be in court. You had more than enough time. You had sufficient time to plan and organize a way to get to court for this date. This court date didn't just pop up on you at the last second. You knew you had to be in court. The lady was trying to plead her case. Well, can we get another court date? How many more court dates do I got left? And see, that's the thing. When we get in trouble, or when you get in trouble, it's up to the judge, you know what I mean, to figure out with the DA and with the defendant attorney on what court dates to set, you know? So you're at the mercy of the court. You can request, hey, look, judge, I can't make this day, but the judge and the DA don't have to grant you anything. It's up to their discretion. So if they say you got to make it on this date and you got something to do, well, you just got to make it on that date or you're going to get an attachment for your arrest, because the judge can bring judgment, right? So the judge showed the lady mercy again, and she told the DA and she told the public defender, look, if she's not here next time, I'm issuing a warrant for her arrest. I'm putting the attachment out. You know, so the judge has the authority to put attachment, to cast judgment on you, you know. But here's the thing I want to get. This is the parallel I want to draw to what I'm seeing to with our faith, you know, and as we walk in our Christian faith. So this was, from what I gathered, the lady had been on the Zoom calls at least 3 or 4 times, and the judge didn't like it. She's like, ma'am, you got to make it to court. And so the lady's like, well, the other times I was pregnant. And the judge said, ma'am, I understand that you were pregnant, and I don't want to seem like I'm being inconsiderate, but I was pregnant 3 times, ma'am. And there's nothing in the law or in you know, for your health that says you can't drive pregnant to court. And even if it's an hour away, you still have to come. And so the lady didn't like it, you know, but she was still respectful. She was wise enough to be respectful to the judge, knowing that the judge had the authority to deal with her accordingly. Anyway, they reset the date, and the lady's going to come back to court. I don't know what's going to happen with it, but this is the parallel I want to draw. That God shows us mercy. He shows us mercy time and time again, you know, probably way more than 4 or 5 times. You know, it's in the Bible. He said, how many times should you forgive? With 70 times 7. You know, the Bible's full of a backslider backsliding, of God's people backsliding, and God pulling them back to him, forgiving them again and again and again, over and over again. But how long do we want to test God's patience? How long do we want to test God? How long? You know, how long are we going to play games with God? God has forgiven us time and time again. When are we finally going to get it in our heads and in our hearts and in our souls that enough is enough? He's had mercy on us, you know. There's going to come a time where we're not going to be alive forever. We're going to die one day. don't die in your sin. Don't die without knowing that Jesus, and this is for the non-believers, and even those backsliders who have turned their faith on God for whatever reason. And don't say you can't turn your faith on God. I've met enough people who used to be born again who now denounce God. They openly denounce God. I've had the conversation with them. They told me different reasons on why they denounce God. Some of them openly say they hate God, or some of them even say they are actually God's enemy. They're purposely and intentionally God's enemy. So what I'm saying is, how long before we don't have another chance? How long before we ourselves have to stand before the judge of eternity? How long before we are going to stand before God to be judged ourselves? We have a free gift. We have salvation right now. Receive salvation today if you don't know Jesus. Receive salvation today if you've backslid and turned away from God. And if you are a Christian who's just trying to get through it because life is hard, you keep going back and forth from sin to salvation, from sin to salvation, from sin to salvation. Look, it's the past is the past, but right now, let's make a commitment that we're going to do all we can, and we're going to make a commitment that we are done with sin, and we are going to be planted in God, and we're going to seek the things of God, and we're not going to keep going back and forth, back and forth. It's just an encouraging word, it is a reality on what I'm saying, that eventually we're going to have to face the judge, and the judge that we're going to face is going to be the judge who sentenced us eternally to either heaven or hell. There is no other option. Let's get it.